You're listening to the Savvy Painter Podcast, episode 359. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Savvy Painter Podcast. I am your host, Antrese Wood, and if you've been listening for a while, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found the podcast. The Savvy Painter Podcast is the podcast for artists who want practical, tactical tips to build a practice that is both fulfilling and supportive. So, hi. Today, I want to talk about something that I think is going to resonate deeply if you are an artist who maybe had stepped away from your work for a little bit. Sometimes that's a few weeks, sometimes it's a few months, sometimes it's years, maybe it was decades. Maybe you took time to raise a family or to build a career or deal with life circumstances that just required your full attention for a while. I mean, it happens. It happens to all of us. I remember there were various periods of my life right after I graduated for college, for example, when I was just really focused on paying off all my student loans, where I focused on work and I hardly painted at all. So there's these kind of ebbs and flows to our work sometimes that is a part of life. And I think it's really important to talk about this because I get messages and DMs from people who mention this, and they talk about it with what sounds like a bit of shame and a bit of, I don't know, shame might be too strong of a word, but there's some sort of embarrassment about it because I think that a lot of times people have these experiences where there's sections of time where they are not painting and they're afraid of what that means or afraid of what they're going to make it mean. So let's talk about this. Because what I noticed is if this is something that you have experienced, you don't regret the choices. You're proud of what you built. You're grateful for the life that you created. But at the same time, there's this sort of, I don't know, it's almost like this ache, this feeling that you're behind, maybe that you lost time, that you should have found a way to keep making art even while you were doing all of these other things that were really important to you. It's this weird both and feeling. It's kind of like, I don't regret my choices, but I feel behind. I'm proud of what I did, but there's this gap. And I don't know, it's like that kind of, I did what I needed to do, but now I feel like I'm starting over. And if this is you, I want you to know, as always, you're not alone. This comes up so often. I see this all the time with the artists that I work with. And a lot of artists will come into Growth Studio and they'll explain this. They'll be like, well, I took time off to raise my kids, or I took time off because I was building this other career. And the thing is you didn't take time off. You chose to do something different. And the thing that you chose to do was important to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have chosen to do it. You know what I mean? So today I want to talk about why this feeling shows up, what it costs you if you're not aware of it, and how you can start to think about it a little bit differently, hopefully in a way that is more productive for you, that's more in line with the life that you want to create. Because here's what I've learned. The idea that I feel behind, or this story that we tell ourselves that because we chose to do this thing in our life, it's not actually about the time that you are away. It's about something else entirely. And once you understand what's really going on, it becomes so much easier to move forward. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's just name the full pattern of what this feels like, because I think when you hear these variations that I'm about to share with you, you're going to recognize yourself. So some of you might be thinking things like, I do not regret raising my family or building my career, but now I feel like I'm decades behind other artists. Or I'm proud of what I built, but there's been this ache the whole time. Even though I was happy building what I was building, there was this sense of loss, like a part of me was missing. Or maybe it's something like, I'm grateful that I was able to step away and do what I needed to do, but I feel guilty that I let my art disappear for so long, or I feel like I lost something. Some of you might be thinking like, I have financial stability now, but I've been creatively starving and I don't know how to feed that part of myself anymore. I need to reconnect with it. Or sometimes it's thoughts like, I can run a business, I raised my kids. They're all alive, happy, safe, and thriving for the most part. I can manage a career. But when it comes to my art, I feel like an absolute beginner. Like I don't have permission to call myself an artist anymore. Or I should have found a way to keep making art through all of that, even just a little bit. I should have honored my creativity alongside everything else. Or I wasted so much time. How much more will I waste before I actually do this? Any of these sound familiar? Because what's happening in all of these variations is this tension between two truths. The first truth is I made the right choice for that season of my life. I did the thing that I needed to do. The second truth is there's a cost to that choice that I'm feeling now, and that cost feels very heavy. And here's what makes this so hard. Our brains just don't like holding two contradictory truths at the same time. We want it to be simple. Either I made the right choice or I made the wrong choice. Either I should have done it differently or I shouldn't feel bad about it now. But life just isn't that simple. The thing is that you can be proud of your choices and grieve what you didn't get to do. You can be grateful for the life that you built and mourn the creative life that you had to put on hold. Both things can be true. So let's talk about why this I feel behind story is so persistent. Because I think that there are a few things happening here. First, you're comparing your current skill level to where you think you should be if you had never stopped. You're looking at artists who've been painting consistently for 20 years and thinking that could have been me. I'd be that good by now if I hadn't taken that time off. But here's the problem with that comparison. It's comparing your reality to a fantasy. You're not comparing yourself to actual other artists. You're comparing yourself to an imaginary version of you that doesn't exist. And that imaginary version is always going to win because it's perfect. It never struggled. It never doubted. It never had to deal with life. It just painted beautifully for 20 years straight, and everything was puppies and unicorns. Second, you're carrying shame about the gap, even though you rationally knew you made the right choice. There's this underlying belief that says, hey, real artists, they'll just find a way. Real artists don't stop. And if I were really meant to do this, I would have found a way to keep going no matter what. And that is just not true. But it's a persistent cultural myth about artists that we're supposed to suffer for our art, that we're supposed to prioritize it above everything else, that taking a break means we weren't serious enough or dedicated enough. That's a ridiculous myth. Don't even get me started because we know that behind every artist who that was supposedly true for, there were people working their butts off supporting that artist. There were wives who sacrificed their life for this artist to be able to create. There are people who put things in place so that artist could just paint and not worry about anything else. It's been turned into this weapon that we use against ourselves, and I say it's time to stop. And third, this is the big one, feeling behind gives you a reason to not start now. Because if you're so far behind, what's the point? If you've already lost 20 years, why bother starting today? I'll never catch up. Right? That's what our brain starts to tell us. It's the way that our brain protects us from the vulnerability of actually making work and having it be imperfect. Because if you stay focused on how behind you are, you never have to risk putting new work out into the world. See how that works? So there's the outside forces that impact us, and then there's our own brain that in this case, really is not helping the situation. So let's talk about what this I feel behind story is actually costing you, because it's not just making you feel bad. It's actively preventing you from moving forward. So first, it paralyzes you. Every time you think about starting, you're immediately flooded with the thoughts about how much time you've lost and how far you have to go. And I know a lot of you are also kind of saying, I'm this age and I have fill in the blank, however many years you think you have left, right? So it just becomes this really, really heavy weight. And that feels overwhelming. So you don't start, or you start and you stop, or you start something small and safe because the stakes feel lower. Second, this idea that you're behind makes you apologize for your work. You show a painting and you immediately explain that you're just getting back into it. You haven't painted in years. You're rusty. You're relearning. You preemptively diminish your work because you're trying to lower expectations. And every time you do that, you reinforce to yourself that your work needs an apology, that it's not good enough because you took time away. Third, this idea keeps you stuck in learning mode instead of creating mode. A lot of artists think like, I need to catch up, I need to take workshops, I need to rebuild my skills. And yes, skill building is important. Do not get me wrong. But what often happens is artists get stuck in this perpetual state of preparing to make art instead of actually making it. So what they're doing there is they're trying to close the gap by learning more. And because they're trying to learn more, and that learning is coming from a place of being behind, there's this sort of graspy feel to it. There's this very kind of anxious, like, I got to do it fast and I got to do it now. And what actually happens is it slows you down. And you're focusing on the wrong thing. When what really closes that gap that you're concerned about, like we can talk later if that gap is really there or not. But what really closes the gap is just painting and making more art and being focused on your voice and what you want to create. And fourth, still talking about this idea of I am behind and what it's costing you. Fourth, this is the one that I really, really want you to hear. This story is stealing your present moment. Every minute that you spend thinking about however many years you lost or months or weeks, whatever it is, however, every minute that you spend thinking about that is a minute that you're not spending on the work that you want to be making right now. The past is done. You can't change it. And let's be honest, I don't think you want to change it. I would say this to Grow Studio members when they start to talk about, like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. And, I took time off and I raised these kids. And I'm like, I know you don't regret raising those kids. I know there's not a part of you. Well, maybe there's the itsy bitsy part when they're teenagers or screaming toddlers. But for the most part, there's no regret about that whatsoever, right? So when you stay focused on this concept that I'm behind, you rob yourself of the moment that you actually have, which is this one right now. So what do you do with this feeling? How do you move forward when you're carrying the story about being behind? Well, first, we can separate the two truths, and you can honor both. You can say, I made the right choice for that season, and I do kind of wish I'd found a way to keep creating. You can say, I'm proud of what I built, and I'm grieving the creative life that I put on hold. You don't have to resolve that contradiction. You just have to stop making one truth cancel out the other. Second, reframe what behind actually means. Behind compared to what? Compared to who? Behind compared to an imaginary version of yourself that doesn't exist? Behind compared to another artist who took a completely different path? Here's the thing, there is no behind. There's only where you are right now and where you want to go. And where you are right now is exactly where you need to be to take your next step. You're not starting over, you're continuing. You're continuing with more of your own life experience, with more emotional depth, with more to say than you had 20 years ago. Third, give yourself permission to be exactly where you are, not where you think you should be, not where you wish you were, not where you would be if everything had been different, where you are right now. Because here's what I've seen over and over and over again. The artists who move forward fastest aren't the ones who never took time off. They're the ones who are conscious of where they are and they accept where they are and they start from there. Okay? It's kind of like in order for me to get directions from a GPS, I have to put in where exactly I am right now. Otherwise, the directions will be wrong. Doesn't matter if I wish I was somewhere else. I have to put in where I am now, and then we can figure out how to get there. So the artists who I've seen move the fastest, they're not wasting energy on, I should have done it this way. They're putting more energy into, okay, what now? What's next? Okay. And then the next thing is you want to focus on the process, not catching up. You're not trying to make up for lost time. You didn't lose any time. You made a choice about what you needed to do for yourself in your life. You're not trying to compress 20 years of painting into 2 weeks or 2 months. You're just showing up today and painting. And then tomorrow you show up and you paint again. That's it. That's the whole thing. Very simple, but I recognize that it's not always easy. Remember that there's no catching up to do. There's just, what am I doing today? What am I doing right now? What does this painting in front of me need? And finally, remember that the gap wasn't empty. You weren't just sitting around doing nothing for 20 years. You were living. You weren't just sitting around doing nothing for 6 weeks or however long it was, whatever reason it was. Seriously, hear me on this. It doesn't matter if it was 20 years, 6 months, or last weekend. You weren't sitting around doing nothing. I want to have a quick parenthetical in here that even if you took a weekend off, or you took a week off, or you took a month off to rest or to take care of your mental health, that is not nothing. It is not laziness. You were living, you were building, you were caring for yourself. You were processing and learning things that will absolutely show up in your work today, tomorrow, and next week. You have more to paint than you did before. More complexity, more nuance, more truth. That time was not wasted. It was just spent differently than what you had planned or what you had imagined. So here's the shift I want you to make. Instead of I'm behind, try something different, like I'm returning. I'm not behind, I'm returning. I stepped away and now I'm stepping back in. With everything that I learned while I was gone, with all of my experiences, and with renewed excitement or renewed interest or renewed gratitude for the art that I'm making or the art that I want to create. Because here's what I want you to understand. There are artists who never stepped away who are still stuck. There are artists who never stepped away who still think that they are the ones who are behind. There are artists who painted consistently for 30 years who still struggle with self-doubt and creative blocks. Time does not guarantee confidence. Consistency does not guarantee creative freedom. What creates those things is the willingness to show up with yourself exactly as you are and make work anyway. And you can do that today. You can do that right now. You can do that exactly as you are, with the skills that you have and with the time that you have, with whatever is present for you. You don't need to catch up. You just need to begin. So if you're an artist who stepped away and now you're feeling behind, I want you to know that that feeling is totally normal and it's completely optional. You get to decide whether you want to spend the next week, the next month, the next year thinking about the 20 years that you lost, or the week that you lost, or the months that you lost. And you can't see me. I've got major air quotes on that word lost. Okay. So you get to decide whether you spend any time at all thinking about that, or whether you spend it making new work. Whatever decisions you made about your practice, you made those decisions. And today you're making new decisions. Our brain can be super, super tricky. This is the thing that I think is so interesting. When we are experiencing something that we don't like, for some reason, our brain likes to tell us that this is the way it is and it's going to be this way forever and ever and ever. So if you're in that place right now where you're in the pause, I want you just to notice if what your brain is offering you is the idea that you're never going to paint again. I catch that in myself all the time. Whenever there's something going on that's kind of like negative, I just notice that my brain responds as if this is my permanent condition now. And so I like to kind of make fun of it because I don't know about you, but my brain can be an absolute drama queen. And what I've noticed is that this is a very human thing that we do, is that our brain likes to tell us these stories that are so dramatic and so convincing. So really question what your brain is offering you. I want to speak directly to the people who you might be in that season right now. You might be a parent with small children, or you might be in a place where you're working 2 jobs, maybe 3 jobs, and this is just the reality of your life right now. It doesn't mean that you will never paint again. You may be in that situation where you're able to carve out a little bit of time and find little pockets here and there, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, where you can paint or sketch or create something. Or you might be in a situation where if there's an extra 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you just need to rest. And what I want to offer you is if that's the situation that you're in, then rest without any guilt. Rest knowing that you absolutely deserve it and your art will be waiting for you. I just wanted to give that little aside for the people who are currently in it, okay? So back to if this is something that you've experienced and now you're coming back and you're feeling those feelings that we've been talking about, this is an invitation to consider other perspectives and allow yourself to be proud of the choices that you made and to enjoy the results of those choices that you made, and also return to your art. Because you can't change the choices that you made in the past, and you probably don't want to, but you absolutely can change what happens next. You can decide that with intention and with purpose. Okay, I think that's all I have to say on this topic for now. Remember, you are exactly where you need to be to take the next step, and that next step is available to you right now. Have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you soon.